We are watchmen, warriors, victors. Together, we will fight the good fight and finish strong. This is David Hebner Live.
Hey everybody, David here. So good to be with you. So what do you do when you're speaking in front of a group of people, a conference, and you're talking about program multiples, satanic ritual abuse, astral projection, bloodlines, and I go on, and after I'm finished speaking, someone comes up to me and says, David, with tears in their eyes, David, that's me. That what you talked about is my life. That's what I've gone through. What do you do when that happens? I'll tell you what you do. You ask them to come on the show to share their experiences. And that's why I want to bring on my guest, Finea. Hey, Finea, how are you doing?
Pretty good. A bit nervous, but otherwise all right.
Yeah, it's going to be painless. Usually I'm the one that goes through the suffering, but Finea, first of all, I want to thank you very much for coming on. I know that what we're going to talk about, you sharing this part of your life, which is intimate, and it is scary. It's hard. It's hard, and I really appreciate it. So I want to start out, first of all, you're a Christian, correct?
Yes.
Okay. How long have you been a Christian?
Originally, how do I put this? When I was about 12, 13, I gave my life to Christ, originally. I was under a great deal of oppression, and it took the better part of, I want to say, about almost 20 years to get out of. I had kind of come to a moral reckoning at around the age of 12, 13 that what I was doing was not right. And that cost me greatly.
So you became a Christian at 12, you accepted Christ, then you went on a 20-year journey of being bounced around. These are things we're going to talk about until you've come out of it. But let's go back. I want to start from the beginning because, man, you've got a story that, I mean, it's not an essay, it's not a synopsis, it's a novel, and it's a thick novel. So I want to talk about first your childhood. Now, you told me you were raised in a generational bloodline. All right.
Yes.
Families on both sides.
Yes.
You think it's Nazi? These bloodlines came from the Nazis.
One of them is. The other is, from what I understand, Shriners, high-level Freemasonry.
Okay, and that was your grandfather. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
I remember seeing the Shriners hat. I remember going to the hospital, all the stuff that was around there.
Okay. All right. Well, why do you think the Shriners are part of this bloodline, the satanic bloodline? For those of you guys who don't know, the generational bloodline we're talking about is it goes way back to the royal family. It goes way back, and through this bloodline is satanic ritual abuse. There's a lot of things that are passed on, and Finea is part of this bloodline. But why do you think the Shriners? We talk about the Masons, but why the Shriners? How are they tied to it?
The Shriners are basically a specialty version. It's a specialty title that only if you are high enough in the Freemasons can you achieve. It is very much a specific, like specialty posting, if you will. Usually you'll see that the older Shriners tend to be the ones that you normally see. It usually takes time to get into those positions. It's who you know, it's what you've done. It's also, I believe, to some extent bloodline related, as far as from what I understand.
Okay, so I want to, let's go back to your childhood. How old were you when things started happening to you? Now, before you answer that, I want to let everyone know that Finea has gone through so many things, from satanic ritual abuse to victim of program multiple, experience astral projection, and more. I want to go back to your childhood. What age were you when you experienced the first thing that you knew wasn't normal, and what was it you were experiencing?
What I've been able to pull together based off things that have come back, flashbacks around the age of 3. My grandfather was my original handler until the age of 10 when he passed. From the things that I've unfortunately had to uncover that were not fun, I was essentially violently molested around the age of 3 years old.
Okay, hold on. You're saying 3 years old you were violent? Is that what you said?
Oh, he would be violent with it.
Violated. Violated.
He
Okay.
would, yes, he would violently molest, yes.
You're saying he was violent or he was violated?
Oh, he was violent. He was violent.
Okay.
Yes. He was very much so.
Physically abusive. Okay. Now, you talked about your grandfather being your handler. We're kind of jumping the gun here because I want to explain to people what a program multiple is.
Sorry.
Now, you wouldn't know he's your handler unless you know what he's handling.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that until many, many years later.
Okay. But what was happening? A lot of people are young and their parents are violent toward them, but they don't go through what you've gone through. What did you go through when you were a child? What was the first thing that you think opened the door to these things you were going through?
The biggest thing that I remember was early around, like I said, like three and a half, I was taken into a room, and my grandfather would do, what they would do. But he would, during some of it, from what I can understand, I would always disassociate. I functionally, ever since I can remember, I was floating about 30 feet above my head. I was so disassociated when I was young that I didn't even know who I was to a certain degree in my early years.
Okay. All right. So
there are hypnosis aspects to what he did as well, but I can get into that if need be.
Okay, Finea, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I need to divide this up into micro sections. So he would take you into a room and do things. You're talking about satanic ritual abuse. Was he performing satanic ritual abuse on you? And if he was it through your sexuality?
One of them, yes. That was one of the many ways, yes.
Okay. Yeah, of course. But there was sexual abuse, there was physical abuse, mental. That's how they separate and divide people, and that's how you end up with multiple personalities. Now, you guys, I want to talk about something that Finea brought up, and I want to touch on it. She was a program multiple. Her personality, she had multiple personalities. And by the way, Finea, how many personalities do you think you had?
Currently, the count was 13. There are multiple fragments that don't really quite count. But 13 in total that I've been able to uncover. Some have been integrated. Some we kind of just function together. It has been a process of many years.
Okay. All right. And folks out there, because I was into mental health years ago, social worker, we called it DID, a dissociative identity disorder. That's the medical term for it, quote, medical term. We call it program multiples, programming. And I happen to believe that it's rampant today in this world, tens of millions, as Russ Dizdar would say. So, Finea, you at a young age, 3 years old, taken off into a room, split personality by your grandfather, who was a Shriner. Why do you think he did this? What do you think the reason is?
Few reasons. One, to explain this, they view this as a gift, in a way. When you are born into the cults, you are given that knowledge. and they have to another one is control, and one is control. One is that they view this as a gift, that you are being given knowledge of the cults. You are only usually able to do that if you were born in, or if you are inducted through a series of different inductions. It's like an onion. That's one of the many reasons that I've seen. Others are because in a lot of cases, certain children will be given over to specific government programs for specific purposes. That seems to be, to an extent, the case that I was involved in.
Okay. All right. So because he came from a bloodline, they take pride in continuing this bloodline, because your grandfather was probably a program multiple. He was satanic ritually abused. Therefore,
mother and aunt as well. Yes.
What's that?
My mother and my aunt as well. Yes.
Your mother and your aunt. So they wanted to two things: continue the bloodline, but number two is control. Now, when someone is usually programmed, they're usually programmed for a reason. Let me give you an example. I cover a lot of these shooters out there that walk into these places and they open fire and take out a whole lot of people, and then they turn the gun upon themselves and take out themselves. They have multiple personalities. One of those personalities is to be a shooter. They were programmed. The other personality is to turn the weapon on themselves, a suicidal event, mission, and to take out themselves, so that there can be no evidence and no one can get any knowledge of what's really going on. Why do you think? Do you believe there was a specific reason they were programming you to go do something?
That is where I'm still trying to uncover some of what has gone on.
Okay.
The program that I was involved in seems to involve a lot of astral projection, a lot of spiritual, I guess, attacks, spiritual warfare, as well as some physical elements. I was trained in aspects of CQC, but the main focus seems to have been more spiritual. They would send me on specific missions in astral aspects, but there were also ritual elements to this as well, that I was involved in, not only on an astral level, but also physical level.
Okay. And we're going to get into astral projection in our next segment here. I want to take you guys to scripture here, which I think is very important right now. Let's go to 1 Peter 5:8-9. 1 Peter 5:8-9. Be alert and sober-minded. Your enemy, the devil, prowls like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Resist him. Stand firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kinds of suffering. Finea, I believe when this scripture was written, they were also talking about what you're going through. The world's same kinds of suffering. You see what I'm saying? When Jesus talked about persecution in Matthew 24, we had no idea the scope of what he was talking about. And this is persecution, what they were doing to you. There's tens of millions of people going through what you are going through. Family of believers that are suffering. Okay. And this is why we expose this. This ministry is one of the few ministries that really dive deep into this and really, I guess you've been listening to the channel. You'll probably agree with me. There's not many people that are doing what we're doing. I mean, they're out there, but.
No. And honestly, like, to try and get help in regards to this, especially from a professional standpoint, is incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
Just in general, because there are people that are involved in these things. There are also the standards of care that are put in that will label us insane and try to institutionalize us against our will. That's happened to people in the past.
Well, that's true. And the reason is, and I want to go to another scripture. The reason is I want you guys to go to Jeremiah 1:5. Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Now, you see, what Scripture is telling us is that the Lord knew Jeremiah before he was formed. Phinehas, he knew you before you were formed. He had a special purpose, a mission for you. So Satan wants to take you out. And this is what I believe. I believe the victims of a lot of SRA program multiples, goes on and on. I tell people, I said, you're chosen. They go, what? I'm chosen? Yeah, I'm chosen to suffer. No, you're chosen by God. That's why you're suffering, because the enemy that doesn't want you around. Because people that just go to church every Sunday, they're lukewarm. They don't even know about this. They usually don't go through this kind of stuff because they're useless to the kingdom of God, and therefore the devil already has them, so he doesn't need to attack them. Would you like to add something to that?
Yes, that is something that I have seen as well. They will target the people, and they have spiritual means to do this. They will target families or specific people that will come in that they, for some, and I can explain some of that, but it's out there. But they, from their fallen angels, from all that type of stuff, they know more or less like who God is sending where, and they will target them. That is not uncommon. If you understand the spiritual way that these people work and the way that they think, it goes in conjunction with the physical. And yes, I very much believe that. I have been told that there's purpose that the Lord has for me. I've been told that, I was chosen for a specific purpose, and that's why some of this happens. In that specific thing. Also, in some situations, the suffering we have makes us kinder. The suffering that we had to endure makes us understand a little bit more what Christ went through, and can appreciate that a little bit deeper as well. So there is a silver lining to some of this, if you can put it in the right context. But it's horrible either way you put it.
Yeah, of course. Before we take a break, one more thing. You said that your grandfather was your handler. I know what that is. You know what that is. But I want you to explain to our listeners that may not know what a handler is when you're a program multiple. What's a handler?
They're basically your main point of contact. They will essentially do direct programming control to you whenever you're not at programming centers, whenever you're not at bases, or wherever they're doing their programming. If they are the head programmer, they are the one that watches you. They are the one that usually has the biggest emotional tie to you, so that they can then betray you to cause the breaks, especially early in the process.
It's almost like a spiritual pimp in a way.
Yes.
And then I want to talk about the altar. You had at least 13 personalities. 13 personalities. And I'm not sure what's all that noise is. Is that? Oh, it must be.
Sorry. That's my my thermos.
Okay. So you had 13 personalities, maybe more. Let's talk about your personalities, your altar. What was the main altar that you had that kind of overlooked
the face, if you will?
Yeah.
The front-facing one is Fen. That is the one that didn't really know much of what was going on. I didn't really. I had a lot of issues. I had missing time. I had a lot of psychological problems up until I was 28 that I did not understand why I had them. I had been spending better part of 8 years trying to dissect what was wrong with me. And then when I hit 28, I was helping someone who had been molested. A friend of mine I was helping, trying to console. And I had the first flashback that I had.
Okay.
So that led to a series of years where it was not fun.
Okay. So your main personnel that oversaw everything really didn't know much what was going on. Their job was to keep everything together, was to keep the peace, you might say.
Yes.
Yeah.
To play house is a term they like to use, but yes.
Okay. So Finea, just to let you know, every time you take a drink of that ice, it sounds like an earthquake going off.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay, no problem. Okay, when we come back, I'm going to talk to Finea about astral projection. What was her experience with astral projection, and an Army Ranger, controlled by an Army Ranger in her early teens. Yeah,
I was trained by them.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about that. So we're talking to Finea, and she has been so kind to be with us. But folks, listen, we're taking a break, and I'm going to play something I want you to listen to, because you can watch it on David Heavener TV exclusively, or you can get it on a DVD along with episode 2 of Last Evangelist. It's called The Coming Apocalypse. Now, in this, we have over 12 people that I interview, L.A. Marzulli, Lisa Haven, the late great Russ Dizdar, and we talk about the things that me and Finea are talking about. We're talking about what's happening in these last days, the coming apocalypse. I want you to take a look at this, and I want you to watch this series, whether you get it on the DVD or you watch it on David Heavener TV. We'll be right back. The coming apocalypse.
They either wanted them to go to jail, or they wanted their kids taken away.
Hey, who is they that's releasing this nano fogging?
I think there's elements of depopulation involved.
Hey everybody, David here. I'm proud to announce the release of a brand new series, The Coming Apocalypse, How to Prepare, on DVD and David Heavener TV.
That final war will be the Antichrist leading the whole world against Israel.
Are we positioned in this country, in the Western world, for a civil war?
It's pretty much everything the mainstream media says is a lie.
Over 2 hours of exclusive, uncensored interviews by Dr. Michael Lake, L.A. Marzulli, Coach Dave, Lisa Haven, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, John B. Wells, Russ Dizdar, Rob Skiba, and many more. When I read scripture, I don't see America.
The Bible says the battle's between the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman.
What people need to understand, these entities are obsessed with mating with us, creating hybrids.
That the only animals that were not affected by the radiation were reptilian.
These parasites could actually raise their ugly head and basically, John, almost start eating people alive. And if you order now, you'll receive absolutely free episode 2 of Last Evangelist, The Insertion, along with The Coming Apocalypse, How to Prepare. Just go to davidheavener.tv/DVD or call 844-806-0006 or text the word chosen to 91999. So what you're saying is a lot of people that see demonic beings in their house or around, this could be someone projecting themselves.
He told his wife Shelley goodbye because he thought that he was going to die then.
Just go to davidheavener.tv/DVD or call 844-806-0006 or text the word chosen to 91999. Yeah, so I want you to pick that up. Either go to David Heavener TV, watch it, the channel. We have a channel on there called The Coming Apocalypse, or you can get it on a DVD and order it. I just told you how. Now, people will go, well, what does America's not in the Bible. What is, the wiping out of civilization? What does all that have to do? Alien demon, what does that have to do with program multiples, with astral projection, with what we're talking about? Folks, let me tell you something. The late, great Russ Dizdar is not with us. He went on to be with the Lord. But this was his life work, talking about astral projections, satanic ritual abuse, troops of the Antichrist. I mean, it just goes on. And he was attacked. He was attacked. Now, here's the deal. The deal is, as time goes on, you and I as Christians are going to be more and more attacked. And if we don't have this information, we could be taken out. Now, if you're a child of God, you're going to go to heaven. But you're also a warrior. You need to know how the enemy operates. You need to understand your weapons. You need to understand how to maneuver these end times when Jesus was talking about. When you talk about America disappearing, how do you think they're going to disappear? A nuclear bomb? Maybe. I don't think so. I think it's going to be through deception. I think it's going to be through ritual abuse, people being program multiples because they're astral projecting out to people? What's the best way to take over a society? Don't destroy them, control their mind, then they'll work for you. And then you talk about Nephilim. What does that have to do with this? Well, who do you think could be behind all this? I mean, these Nazi scientists in Germany doing all these horrific things to Jews? Could these not be fallen angels? I mean, yes, the seed made it through the flood. We've established that. And Jesus said, as in the days of Noah, so will be the coming of man. What was happening in the days of Noah? The sons of God was going into the daughters of men. You had fallen angels. You had Nephilim. Folks, they're behind it. It's rampant. And that's why we have to open people's eyes. But we have the weapons of our warfare. Let's look at that. I love going to scripture because we have hope. Not only that, but we have power and we're the winners. 2 Corinthians 4, 10, 4, and 5. The weapons we fight are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, we have divine power to demolish strongholds. You hear that? Divine power to demolish strongholds, to get rid of satanic ritual abuse, get rid of witchcraft. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. We need to watch our mind. You see, the mind gets attacked. That's when they program someone, they go after the mind through their sexuality, through abuse of various kinds. All right. To talk more about this, I'm going to bring my guest on, Finea. Finea, I want to talk about astral projection. If you guys are just tuning in, Finea, at 3 years old, was programmed by her grandfather, who was her handler, through horrific abuse, through her sexuality, splitting her up into at least 13 personalities. Now, you're a teenager, and how old were you when you first astral projected?
From what I understand, it's kind of a hard situation because originally a lot of that has to go around disassociation. I was constantly out of my body since I can remember, essentially. I would float above my body ever since I was a kid, roughly about 30 feet above. And I would encounter various spirits, I guess you could say. I didn't really understandably get into it until much later. But what I was being used, from what I remember, the programs well into probably like 10 years old on.
Mm-hmm.
I personally didn't really get into it at the same level until my 20s.
Okay. So you were a teenager. Okay. So Finea, you were a teenager, and I know that you said you spent a lot of time outside the body. The reason that happens is when a person is so abused, they detach from who they are, your identity, and that's how they create these multiple personalities. So I can understand the fact you would constantly be out because you had to disassociate because it was so painful. Do you remember the first time, other than being outside the body, where you actually astral projected out, where you actually went somewhere, you did something? Was there a time?
I would say to some extent it's conscious and to some extent it wasn't. Probably about 7 years old when I ran. I basically, during a series of abuse, I essentially left the house. More or less, sorry, not the funnest thing to remember. Yeah. But basically I left the house and I started kind of wandering. And eventually I came back. I ended up about 2 or 3 towns down. Didn't really fully understand it at the time. Came back, and you know, the rest of what happened kind of happened.
Yeah.
I tended to freeze up. I would enter those types of states almost where I would just disassociate for hours from a very early age. So it's kind of a hard thing to say that it was particularly conscious.
Yeah.
A lot of this I didn't really understand until much later, but I was trained in the occult and used on an operative level much earlier than what I understood from my own experiences up to that point. Having gone back and dealt with some of that, now I see kind of what they were using me for. I have memories now that have surfaced that explain that at a much earlier date.
Okay. What were they using you for?
Sometimes reconnaissance, sometimes to spy on very specific people, sometimes to act as relay, as messenger for specific spirits, for specific individuals even. Things of that nature.
You know, Finea, back several months ago when I was speaking, you and I didn't know each other. I spoke at a church in front of a group of people, and you were operating the sound. And here I am talking about program multiples, astral projection, all the things I talk about. What did you think when you heard me? I mean, because you don't hear many people talk about that, right? What went through your mind when you heard me talk?
I was sitting there thinking to myself at the time, I'm like, yeah, no, that's about spot on. There's a lot of context and things that would take a long time to explain, but yes, the basic premise is correct.
Yeah.
There is a great deal of symbolism. There's a great deal of specific control points, specific narratives that they'll create that can be used, but yes. Yeah. Overall, the basic premise is correct. There's a lot of nuance and a lot of context that's missing, obviously, but the basic semblance of what it is correct, yes.
Okay, but
that was more or less my thought process.
Okay, so but when you heard me speak, had you gone to the channel on David Heavener TV or the channel to see what I talk about? Did you have any idea?
To that point, no.
Okay.
I didn't even really know you at that point. I've since looked at it, but it was more or less kind of a raised eyebrow of, oh,
right, yeah,
somebody gets it.
I could imagine, because there's not many people that do. So what I'm getting ready to touch on, kind of let me lead the way, because it's very touchy when I'm going to get ready to say it. I don't want to be taken off the air, if you know what I'm saying. But you, as a child, were a victim of child trafficking. Just give me an age without elaborating on it. How old were you?
First memory is 4 to 5 years old, somewhere in that range.
Okay. Trafficking. Again, let me kind of lead the way, because I want to make sure we don't. And folks, when we go underground, and I'm hoping Finea can be with us underground in about 20 minutes, I'm going to ask her if she will elaborate on this. I can't elaborate on it now. I can't elaborate on it now, but it has to do with porn, okay? And I'm not going to get into that on this segment right here. But on underground, I will. David Heavener TV. And by the way, you can go right now and sign up to David Heavener TV if you're not a member. So you can go with us underground, and because I think that's important. All right, now let's go to the fact that you were controlled, abused, early teens by an Army Ranger.
I was trained. They were there simply for martial training. They took it out on me, yes. I was trained originally in hand-to-hand, probably around the age of somewhere between 10 to 12. There were a couple different sessions. They were not the main abuser by any stretch, but they essentially trained me in aspects of CQC, dagger fighting, various guns.
Okay, what is
if I failed, I would be beat.
What is CQC? What is that?
Close quarters combat.
Okay, all right. And I want to ask you, also about regarding the this Army Ranger who's a member of the Army, I guess. But you were programmed some sort of black butterfly programming. What's the black butterfly
Yes.
programming?
No, I had two separate types, blue and black. Black was essentially seemingly the marshal, the assassin programming. I'm not entirely sure of all of it, but I was told basically that well, how do I put it? I was told the things that they would always tell me is follow the butterfly and point the blade. The blade will go where the butterfly flies. And the whole concept, and I have had moments where it's come out now where programming started to break down, where that has caused serious issues, memories of specifically use for assassinations, going into specific compounds for specific things. I don't really know what it all entails. I have fragmented aspects of it.
Okay. I want to talk about the government hospitals, your memory of being in government hospitals and the Guardian program. So let's just spend a moment talking about that.
Sure. I have multiple memories of being involved in I guess multiple rituals held in hangars, mind control aspects held in hangars, specifically, from what I can understand, at least possibly two separate hangars that would be done at night. I also have memories of being electroshocked, being wheeled in between various different kind of military hospitals. Basically old school tile with like white and green. These areas were basically, sterile, but definitely looked like something out of a military kind of style of hospital. As far as the Guardian program, I'm not fully entirely sure what it was in reference to, but I know that there were multiple programs under different names by different countries. It had to do with different spiritual aspects that apparently kids, at least certain people from certain families, were volunteered for, basically from before birth or directly after birth, depending on the family.
Yeah.
I've run into a couple of people who have been involved in this program, and they've also confirmed my involvement in it.
Well, Finea, I want to ask you about programming others. You not only were a program multiple, a victim of it, but then you went on to be a programmer. Tell me about that. Again, we got to be careful what we say, but were you a handler for someone, like your grandfather was your handler?
This is very tough for me, so I apologize. I was trained in essentially the same style of program. Sorry, it's
That's all right.
It's not easy to go into to details, but basically, I had to program other children, or I would be
So you were
painfully punished under threat of death and other things.
Yeah. Do you believe when you were programming other children, that had to be one of your 13 personalities doing that? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when your grandfather was programming you and he was your handler, he specifically appointed one of those personalities to be a person that would go out and abuse other children, do satanic ritual abuse. This is how it works because you're a member of the bloodline. Now, you also had a ritual where your soul was fused with a fallen angel.
Yes.
Named Ariel.
Yes.
Tell me about that. How did that happen where your soul was fused with the fallen angel?
I cannot go into full details because it is quite graphic and it's quite gruesome. But,
Okay, well, I tell you what, we're going to take a break just for a moment. When we come back, I want to talk to you about fallen angels. You can go as deep as you want to go, and we're going to talk to people about what a fallen angel is. Okay, so just hang on to that thought. Finea, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Folks, I'm going to play this commercial on David Heavener TV, and the reason I'm kind of giving a little preview of it is because I want to ask you for your support as far as becoming a member of David Heavener TV. We need to build up our membership, and there's power in numbers. But I would just want you to take a look at this commercial and see the various things you get. And if you are a member, I want to thank you so much for supporting the ministry. Just take a look. We'll be right back. I want you to go to davidheavener.tv. We have 2 exclusive videos that are up. You won't see any place else. I'm Dr. Michael Lake. The first one is Technocracy and Tyranny. That's part 2. Part 1 is MK Ultra is used today, program multiples and mass shootings. This is stuff you're not going to get anywhere else. You'll get it on davidheavener.tv. Please support us. If you haven't signed up, go and sign up now. You get a 2 months free if you sign up for a year. And folks, it is not expensive, but it really does help the ministry. And also you'll get over 700 videos. Spencer, what are the names of some of those channels up there?
Yeah, David, we've got the live stream channel. We've got the Russ Dizdar tribute channel, David's Choice, In the Spotlight, Spiritual Warfare Training, Alien Demon Connection, The Last Evangelist TV series, originals and exclusives, Mind Control.
And it's the only place you can see Last Evangelist, davidheavener.tv. And we have the new End Times DVD, 8 hours of me investigating things like Satanism, demonic powers, Illuminati, New World Order, Antichrist, One World Religion, End Times Miracles, Bible prophecy, and the Alien Demon Connection with L.A. Marzulli. So I want you to text the word chosen to 91999. The word chosen to 91999 and get the End Times Investigation DVD. Yeah, pick that up. Support the ministry. I really appreciate it. We're talking to Finea, and she's a victim of satanic ritual abuse. Was a program multiple for many years, and also did astral projection. I mean, it goes on and on, folks. So this spiritual resume, dark spirit, goes on for pages and pages and pages. And that's why I'm so thankful to have her come on to share this, because I think there's so many people out there suffering from this, and they don't even know they're suffering from it. So Finea, before we talk about fallen angels, how are you set free now? Are you experiencing any of this? Have you been healed?
Yes. As a general rule, for the last 9 years, they tried to access me up until about 28. For about 9 years, Lord's had my back on it. Obviously, I'm free of the spiritual ends of this. Yes, it took a long time. It took a lot of process, but the Lord has guided me through that. He does protect me in a spiritual sense from a lot of this. Okay. So I'm very lucky in that regard. Obviously, the psychological is something you have to process through.
Yeah. So, let me lay this out to you guys. Finea, at 3 years old, was attacked by her grandfather, who's a handler, satanic ritual abuse, split personalities, but then gave her life to the Lord at a young age, about 7 or 8 years old?
12, 13.
12, 13. But you give your life to the Lord, but that doesn't exempt you from going through what it is you went through. In other words, now you're saved, but now you need to be healed. Now you need to be, I want to say, delivered. I mean, of these things that you were going through, these multiple personalities, were these demons? Did you have to have demons cast out of you, or did you have to just be healed, or both?
Kind of a combination, both.
Both, yeah.
I was essentially given demonic guardians that were my teachers. I thought that they were my friends. That's part of how they do it. Lilith and Agrath, the two of the queens of prostitution, were my demonic guardians at the time. Those had to be removed by Christ. As far as some of the other root of the psychological issues that it was tied into, there did need to be some aspects of deliverance that happened through that process.
Okay. All right.
It was a long and arduous process of trying to get that cleared out. Luckily, the Lord has taken care of that. The majority of it is now just psychological, specific triggers, specific words. I encountered something like that the other day when I had a PTSD attack, where I literally had programming come up that I had to try and deal with.
Yeah.
It is not fun.
Yeah. So, folks, I want to share something with you. You can go through what Finea's gone through, and you can be saved. Okay, you can be saved. You'll have eternal salvation, but it doesn't mean that you're that you're delivered of these demons that are around you, in you. And I don't mean demon possessed. Your soul cannot be demon possessed when you're saved, but demons can be in your body. They can be around you. Those have to be dealt with. But then there also, after that, there needs to be healing. There needs to be. It's a two-part process: the deliverance and then the healing of these personalities that have been, and that sometimes takes years. Okay, from the many people that I've interviewed that were victims of Program Multiple. So I want you to understand that if you're going through that and you are saved, yes, you are saved. That's the good news. The bad news is now what are you going to do with it? Well, deliverance and then healing. So Finea, I want to talk about fallen angels. You say that they were your spiritual guardians, your teachers. Okay. First of all, tell the audience what a fallen angel is, what you believe a fallen angel is.
Fallen angels are what you would call demons, devils, if you will, higher level fallen spiritual entities. I've been shown by God what the actual angels look like, and they are very much the biblical definition. These are much more shapeshifters. These are much more kind of people that will take on forms that you will want to like. Again, the whole Satan appears as a messenger of light, or as a being of light. Yeah. Why not his messengers? Same type of thing. They lie, they manipulate, they will distort your perception, and they will do that through experiences, spiritual experiences. That's the whole concept behind Luciferianism in a lot of ways. One of the biggest gimmicks that they'll use with the New Age is experiences. They will give you what you seem to think are euphoric experiences. They will tell you that you are God, you are your own God. The same lie Satan always uses. It's the exact same thing, just more convoluted.
Yeah. So Finea, I talked earlier about how they would pull this destruction of America and the world off, and they would do it through these fallen angels, the Nephilim, the sons of man coming into the daughters of men, birthing these. And it's especially, if you think about the military, they have different platoons, they have different ranks. These fallen angels are a different rank than what people understand what just demons are, right? You made mention of that. These are, I don't want to say higher level. I just have to say it because I'm trying to convey what I'm thinking. So it's not the higher level. It's a different level for a specific agenda. Now, do you believe that most of the programming are coming from these? Are some of the programs coming from these fallen angels? In other words, the fallen angels are behind this SRA, the core of what you and I are talking about, what you went through.
Yes, to a degree. They are part of a mechanism for it, yes. And they do control a certain amount of it. But they're at the higher end. there is a council that they have that is essentially of all the fallen in the second heaven, in the abyss, if you will, all the Kabbalistic terms. It's the same place.
Okay.
They have specific councils that they have to control these things out. They plan hundreds of years.
Yeah.
They work with the human elements, the human governmental elements, the human occultic elements. All are basically serving that same agenda. They are trying to play essentially 5D chess with people against God, who can do infinite chess. They will not win. They cannot win, but they think they can. It's the ultimate form of hubris.
Yeah, and they become your friends, and they hide under the mask of Masonic, Shriner, Luciferian.
And their temple looks just like the stuff that the Masons do, just like the stuff that the Shriners do. All of that is predicated off the same lie.
Yeah, exactly. So, Finea, we're coming to a close here, but before we do, I need to. First of all, you're married, right? You're married.
Technically fiance. It's more an issue of money right now. We want to get married, but we've been together for 6.5 years.
Okay, but you're with.
It's just a matter of time.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. You're with a guy. What? Tell me, what does your partner say about that? Does he? I assume he knows what you've been going through. Is he supportive, or what's going on?
Originally, he thought it was all bunk until he started seeing things, and I've had this happen with multiple people before. They think you're nuts until they end up running into things that don't make sense, and the only thing that makes sense is exactly what you told them, down to the T. And then they go, oh, wow, you weren't BSing here. No, I wasn't. But he's seen enough to know. He helped me through some of the biggest issues, as far as when I had the PTSD, some of the multiples arose, some of the different things came up. He was there through mostly all of it. Not every last bit of it, but a good chunk of the worst of it. He's seen firsthand and had to help me deal with the issues involved in this. He's seen other people that have come up that have been involved in this, that have confirmed things. He knows at this point, he fully believes me, because he's seen enough in my life, and he's seen enough of what's happened with me to know full well, more or less, what's going on. I don't let him know all of it, because he doesn't need to know the graphic end of it. He's a very kind, very gentle man. He does not need to know it to be able to help. And nobody, unless they've gone through it, is ever going to understand it fully.
Yeah.
And that's just a reality. But you don't have to understand it fully to be there for somebody, to help them, to support them, and to help them through it. And that is the biggest thing that I would say to people is, if you run into somebody like this, don't think that you can't help. Yes, it's a process, but if you are willing to be there for them, it can mean the world to them when they are suffering through pain. That I know what my cry threshold is. About an hour and a half before I just shut down physically. I know what the seizures are like. I know what the psychogenic issues are that come from all of this. I've experienced all of it.
Yeah.
And to have somebody there has been an absolute blessing.
So, Finea, I had two questions. You answered one of them. The question that you answered was, what if you run into somebody that has had the experience that you've had? And you just answered that. Whether it be someone that's, that you're dating, or your husband or wife or whatever, or a friend, or a coworker, somebody. So you answered that. But my next question is, what about someone out there that's going through what you've gone through? Now, you've been delivered to a certain extent and you've overcome, but there are people out there that haven't, and they're struggling. What can you give them?
Biggest thing, honestly, is come to the Lord. He's the only one that can deliver you out of it. The stuff that I was involved in, they embed it so deep in the people around you in the people that you know, and it takes the Lord to be able to pull them out directly, but he can. And I've seen this more powerfully in my life than I think most people can even understand or attest. He has pulled me physically away from people that were involved in these things. He has shown me these things. I have literally seen him. He has given me the sight to see him pull demons away from me. I am a living testament to the mercy of God, to the love of God, and to the power of God. And what I would tell to anybody who is going through this is bring it to Christ. He will pull you out of it. It will take time more than likely, but he will pull you out of it. It's going to be a wild ride regardless of what it's going to be. You're going to have to deal with a lot of things you don't want to deal with, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. But if he is with you, you can do it.
Yeah. Where's the church in all of this? Have they helped you as the church played a part in your deliverance and your healing? Did they understand it? Can you go to them? Can you talk to them like you're talking to us?
No.
No.
There are certain people in my church that know. Very few among the pastors that have any understanding of fully what's going on.
Right.
Honestly, I haven't found anybody. I know one other that got out that was part of the FDLS Mormon cult. That's a friend of mine that took her almost 15 years to get away. Yeah. She's still afraid of them to this very day. Same type of stuff I've dealt with, just different tradition, different rules and specific things that they've dealt with. I'll be honest with you, the church is not, to be straight up, the church is not equipped to deal with this. At least not the modern day church.
No.
People will, more than likely, most people that I've encountered, even if they may be well-being, they'll think you're nuts. Yeah. They'll tell us to our face that we're nuts. I've tried to say it to one other person that kind of what I've dealt with, and they will tell you straight to your face, you're insane. Yeah. There are very few people that have an understanding of this. There are very few people that will deal with it.
Not only that, Finea, but a lot of the handlers, a lot of the program multiples, a lot of these SRA initiators and victims are in the church. They are hiding it, or they just don't know. They don't know. And I appreciate you coming out and forth and being vulnerable and laying this out to help people. And I believe you have helped a lot of people. I'm just believing that in my spirit, knowing it. Listen, if you could stick around with us to go underground in about 5 minutes, we're going to go underground. And then I've got some question and answer people that just have some questions for you. Maybe they have some advice. Maybe they might tell you that they're going through the same thing. So if you can stick around, appreciate that, Finea. Thank you so much for being with us. And I got to have you on again because you got a lot more stuff we haven't even gotten into. So, all right. Yeah. Well, all right. Well, thank you so much and God bless you.
You as well.
All right, folks, Finea. And if you want to catch her on Underground in about 5 minutes, you can go with this Underground. Listen, if you would like to become a partner with our ministry and help us spread this kind of truth, this kind of information, I would appreciate that. Just go to davidheavener.tv/give or text the word chosen to 91999 or call Shanita at 844-806-0006. She'll be happy to pray with you. You can send me an email. I'll be happy to pray for you. And thank you for being there for us and for, being a partner and walking with us. We need you. We need your prayers. We need your financial support and your encouragement. Also, if you want to go underground with us, here's the link. And if you're not a member, but you sign up right now, send an email this one time only to admin@davidheavener.tv. And Shanita will send you back a link just for this week. You can go with us underground. All right. I appreciate it. I love you guys. And listen, if you're going through what Finea has been talking about, you can email me. I want to know your story. Number one, I want to pray for you, and maybe you need to get the word out to somebody else. Folks, the more we expose Satan on things like this, the less power that he has to destroy God's people. All right. So I want you to stay with me as we go underground. God bless you. I appreciate you guys so much. Love you.
Christian TV series, The Last Evangelist, Season 1, Episode 1. I'm a special guest star in this, along with a famous actor by the name of Johnny Whitaker, and he plays an archbishop. I could be nominated for an Oscar for this. You could get The Last Evangelist right now. This is different. For a Christian film, it's intense. Well, here's what David Heavener says. Prophecy has now become reality. The Last Evangelist is a cutting-edge, end-time series on how Revelation prophecies are already being fulfilled today. From a demonic government controlled to the mark of the beast, it's a fast-paced criminal investigative show. CSI meets the book of Revelations. Lisa Haven's in this. There's some other really good actor and actresses in here. David Heavener is a star. David's been in 50 films, 32 of which he's produced. So he's a good director and a great filmmaker. It's top-notch quality. Get your copy tonight.